The galaxy had seen many rulers, but very few were as proud and strict as the Valyrian Empress. Her empire stretched across dozens of star systems, built on discipline, order, and strength. She believed a ruler must be firm as iron. She believed softness was weakness, and she believed emotions had no place in leadership. But life did not always follow her beliefs. Her twin daughters, Areli and Sena, were born nothing like the Empress expected. They were gentle, calm, and curious about everything. Where their mother saw war, they saw art. Where she valued power, they valued kindness. The Empress tried again and again to turn them into warriors, but the twins always resisted. They could not bring themselves to harm another creature, even during training. As the princesses grew older, the Empress began to feel disappointed. She told herself she loved her daughters, but each day she looked at them and saw what she called weakness. Her council had already begun whispering. An empire ruled by softness would crumble. She needed heirs who could stand firm like stone. She needed successors who understood the weight of command. The twins tried to please their mother. Areli practiced battle stances, even though her hands shook. Sena trained with energy blades, though she cried at the sight of injuries. But each attempt only made the Empress colder. She believed they were failing her, failing the empire, failing the bloodline. One morning, after a long meeting with her advisors, the Empress made a decision that surprised even herself. The twins would be sent away, far from the throne, far from judgment, far from the empire, where softness was seen as shame. She told the council that this was for training. She claimed the princesses needed to learn discipline from a different environment. But deep inside, she knew the truth. She was sending them away because she did not know how to reach them. A small starship was prepared. The twins were summoned, still unaware of what was happening. They stood in front of their mother, frightened but hopeful. Maybe today she would praise them. Maybe today she would smile. The Empress stood tall, wearing her royal armor, her expression unreadable. She told them they were leaving the empire for a while. They would live with a human on a distant frontier world. They would learn real discipline, something she believed she had failed to teach them. Areli's eyes widened. Sena's voice shook. "Mother, did we do something wrong?" The Empress did not answer the question. She simply told them to pack a few things and board the ship. It was the first time the twins realized they were being sent away not as daughters, but as burdens. The journey through hyperspace felt longer than the stars themselves. Areli sat quietly, clutching her small chest of clothes. Sena stared through the window, watching light stretch across the darkness. Neither spoke. They did not know what kind of human they were being sent to, or why their mother chose him. They only knew they were leaving behind the only home they had ever known. The starship finally approached a small green and gold planet on the edge of human space. It was peaceful, mostly covered in forests, rivers, and wide-open fields. A place far different from the metal corridors of the Valyrian palace. The human waiting for them had no idea who was arriving. Elias Ward was a simple man. A mechanic, an engineer, and a rancher. He lived in a quiet valley with a workshop full of half-fixed machines and a farmhouse built by his own hands. People in the nearby town respected him because he always helped those who needed something repaired. He had no family of his own, but he had a gentle heart and a patient nature. He glanced at his old scanner and frowned. An imperial ship was landing? On his land? He dusted off his shirt, stepped outside, and watched the sleek silver craft descend. Its engines hummed softly as it touched the grassy field behind his workshop. The doors opened, and two small figures stepped out. Areli and Sena stood at the base of the ramp, holding their chests tightly. Their clothes were elegant, but simple, made for travel. Their hair moved gently in the breeze. Their faces looked tired, as if they had cried silently for hours. Elias blinked. The twins bowed politely, unsure how humans greeted strangers. They expected him to be confused, annoyed, maybe even angry at having to take care of two aliens without warning. But Elias only smiled softly and walked closer. "You must be the guests they mentioned in the message. I didn't get many details. But, welcome." The twins exchanged surprised looks. No irritation? No judgment? No cold stare? He picked up one of their heavy chests without waiting to be asked and carried it toward the house. They nodded shyly. Inside the house, Elias opened the windows so light poured in. He cleaned off the table, warmed water for tea, and showed them two rooms on the second floor. Both had warm blankets, soft pillows, and small lanterns. Aurelie touched the blanket gently, amazed by its softness. Senna stepped into her room and stared at the wooden shelves filled with small tools and books. "You can stay as long as you need," Elias said. "No rush. Make yourselves comfortable." The twins did not know how to react. In the palace, they always felt watched, judged, corrected. Here, they felt no pressure, only kindness. It confused them, but in a way that made their hearts feel lighter. Later that evening, Elias prepared a simple meal. The twins sat at the table, unsure if humans had strict dining rules. Elias noticed their stiff posture. "You don't have to be formal," he said gently. "Relax. It's just dinner." They tried their best to relax. Aurelie tasted the vegetable stew slowly. Sena studied the spoon like it was a tool she had never seen before. Elias chuckled kindly, but never mocked them. When the meal ended, Elias asked about their home. The twins hesitated. They did not want to speak poorly of their mother, but the sadness in their eyes told him enough. "You don't have to talk about anything you don't want to," he said. Aurelie lowered her head. "We were not good enough." Elias felt a quiet ache in his chest. "Good enough for who?" "For our mother," Sina whispered. Elias didn't press further. Instead, he said something the twins had never heard before. "You're safe here." Those 3 words sank deep into their hearts. Safety was not something they felt in the palace, even with guards everywhere. Safety had never been emotional before. Safety had never been gentle. That night, the twins slept in warm rooms, wrapped in blankets, surrounded by the quiet sounds of a human world. For the first time in years, Aurelie fell asleep without fear of disappointing someone. Sina slept without worrying about tomorrow's training. The next day, they woke to birds singing outside the window. The sun painted gold across the fields. Elias was already fixing a large machine behind the workshop. The twins watched him, curious. He noticed them and waved. "Want to help?" They looked at each other in surprise. No one had ever asked them to help with work before. They had only been ordered. But Elias's voice was different, friendly, not demanding. Sina stepped forward. "We can try." Aurelie followed her, still shy but eager to learn. Elias taught them how to hold tools, how to tighten bolts, how to clean gears. Sina was clumsy at first, dropping things, making mistakes. She braced herself for a harsh reaction, but Elias only smiled. "You'll get it. Everyone starts somewhere." Aurelie helped by handing tools and cleaning parts. She enjoyed the simple rhythm of the work. For the first time, she felt useful, not for her title, but for her effort. The twins spent the whole morning learning. At lunchtime, they sat outside, under the shade of a tree, eating fruit and talking. Elias asked what they liked, what they were curious about, what they wanted to try on Earth. No one had ever asked them about their wants before. As days passed, the twins began to understand something important. Elias did not see them as failures. He did not see them as weak. He saw them as people who deserved patience, kindness, and freedom to grow. Little by little, their fear melted away. Sena discovered she loved fixing small machines. Aurelie found joy in planting seeds and caring for the garden behind the house. The stars above them felt less cold than they had in the palace. But far away, in the vast halls of the Valyrian Empire, rumors began to spread. Some said the Empress had grown too harsh. Others whispered that her heart was turning to stone. A few wondered what would happen next. No one imagined that the twins, sent away as failures, would soon become the heart of a human world. And no one expected the quiet human Elias Ward to become the center of a storm that was growing somewhere in the shadows of space. Life on the human colony slowly began to shape Aurelie and Sena into people they never imagined they could be. Each day felt brighter than the last, and each morning came with a new lesson, a new discovery, and a new sense of freedom. Elias Ward continued to guide them with patience and warmth. He never raised his voice, never pushed them too hard, never treated them like burdens. For the first time, the twins felt they were living, not just surviving. Aurelie found herself waking early just to see the sunrise. She loved how the sky changed from dark blue to pink and gold. She would stand quietly outside and watch the world slowly wake up around her. Sometimes, she carried a small watering can and tended to the young plants she had placed in the soil. Elias gave her a tiny corner of the garden and told her she could grow anything she liked. That small piece of land became her world. Sena spent most mornings in the workshop. She sat beside Elias, listening closely as he explained how human engines worked. She found the machines fascinating, simple, compared to the complex technology of her people, yet creative in a way she admired. Humans did not rely on perfection. They relied on problem solving. When something broke, they fixed it with whatever they had. This inspired her deeply. One afternoon, while Elias repaired a generator, Sena asked hesitantly, "Elias, do humans ever feel like failures?" Elias paused, wiped his hands, and nodded. "All the time. But we get up, try again, and learn from it. That's how we grow." Sena looked down at her hands. "In our home, failing meant disappointment. Shame. That's because someone told you that," Elias said softly. His words stayed with her for days. The local town children also became curious about the alien twins. The first time Aurelie and Sena visited the small market with Elias, people stared with wide eyes. The twins felt nervous, afraid they would be judged. But humans, especially children, were full of curiosity, not cruelty. A little girl walked up to Aurelie and handed her a flower. "Your hair is pretty," she said. Aurelie's face lit up. No one back home had ever complimented her hair. It had always been judged as too soft, too delicate. But here, it was simply beautiful. Sena had a similar experience when a group of boys saw her carrying a small mechanical part. They asked what it was. She explained shyly, and their faces lit up with amazement. One boy said, "Wow, you're smart." She did not know how to react at first. Smart? Her mother had never called her that. Slowly, the colony began embracing the twins. They became part of the community, greeted daily by smiles and friendly waves. Elias often watched them from a distance, quietly proud. He could see confidence growing in them. He could see their spirits opening like flowers finally reaching sunlight. But not everything in life stays peaceful forever. Unseen by the colony, trouble was forming in the deeper parts of space. A hostile alien faction known as the Korda had learned about the Valyrian princess's exile. The Korda were not powerful enough to challenge the Valyrian Empire directly, but capturing the princesses would give them leverage. They could force political deals, demand land, or even destabilize the empire from the shadows. They sent scouts, then ships. They traced the star routes until they finally discovered the small human world, where the princesses lived quietly with Elias. Their ships stayed hidden, observing, waiting. Back on the colony, Elias began noticing strange signals on his small scanner. At first he thought it was a glitch, but after several days of irregular readings, he grew uneasy. He knew enough about alien tracking methods to recognize trouble. One evening, while the twins helped him cook dinner, the scanner beeped again with a sharper sound. Elias frowned and checked the display. A signal was approaching the planet's atmosphere, something large and unfamiliar. Aurelie saw the worry in his eyes. Is something wrong? Elias didn't want to alarm them, but he also didn't want to lie. There may be visitors coming. Not friendly ones. Sina froze. Did our mother send someone? No, Elias said gently. This feels different. The twins exchanged nervous glances. Their lives had only just begun to feel safe, and the thought of losing that made their hearts heavy. That night, sleep did not come easily. The twins lay awake in their rooms, listening to the quiet wind outside. Sina stared at the ceiling, remembering the stern face of their mother, the cold halls of the palace, the constant fear of failure. Aurelie curled into her blanket, afraid she would be taken away again, this time not to exile, but to become a tool in someone else's plans. Elias stayed awake in the living room, cleaning his tools and preparing equipment. He did not know what threat might come, but he was determined to protect the twins. They were not just guests to him anymore. They were family. 2 days passed before anything happened. The scanner readings became more frequent. The local sky patrol reported seeing a distant shadow in orbit. People in town began whispering about possible pirates or smugglers, but the danger finally revealed itself during a sunny afternoon. Aurelie was kneeling by her garden, planting new seeds. Sina was helping Elias repair a broken water pump. The valley was peaceful. Birds singing, leaves dancing softly in the breeze. Then a deep rumble echoed across the sky. Elias looked up sharply. A large, dark ship broke through the clouds, its engines roaring as it descended. It was not Valyrian. It was not human. Sina's face turned pale. Corda! Elias reacted instantly. Inside. Now. The twins ran toward the house while he grabbed a small communication device and warned the town. Alarms rang in the valley. Humans rushed into shelters. Children were guided indoors. The Corda ship landed roughly on the open field near Elias's workshop. Its metallic body glowed with sharp red lights. A group of tall, armored soldiers stepped out, each carrying advanced weapons. Elias pushed Aurelie and Sina behind him and stepped forward. He had no weapon, only a firm look in his eyes. One of the Corda soldiers spoke loudly. We are here for the Valyrian princesses. Hand them over. Oh. Elias kept his voice steady. They are under my protection, the soldier scoffed. A human farmer thinks he can stop us? Elias didn't move. He didn't raise his hands. He simply stood, like a wall. The Corda soldiers moved forward. Confident humans were no real threat. They had underestimated the colony. They did not expect anyone to resist. But the valley erupted with human courage. Town guards arrived with simple weapons, nothing fancy, but effective. Farmers used old hunting rifles. Engineers activated defensive shields they built themselves. Friends of Elias rushed to protect him, forming a line between the twins and the invaders. Aurelie clutched Sina's hand tightly. She had never seen humans fight, not with anger, but with loyalty. They were not fighting for power. They were fighting for each other. The Corda soldiers tried to push forward, but humans used the land to their advantage. Elias shouted instructions, guiding people where to stand, how to move, how to avoid direct blasts. Despite the chaos, Aurelie and Sina watched Elias closely. He moved fearlessly, protecting everyone around him. When a blast nearly struck the workshop, he shielded a small child without thinking twice. His determination felt stronger than any weapon. At one point, a Corda soldier got close enough to reach the twins. Sina stumbled backward, but Elias appeared instantly, pulling her behind him. He looked the soldier straight in the eyes. Not them. The soldier hesitated. Something in Elias's stare, something quiet, steady, and unbreakable, made him step back. Humans didn't win because of superior technology. They won because they refused to give up. The Korda retreated slowly, surprised by the resistance. They fired one last blast toward the valley, but Elias activated a shield generator just in time. Moments later, the ship lifted off, rising into the sky until it disappeared into the clouds. The valley fell silent. Aurelie and Sina ran to Elias. Aurelie's eyes were full of tears. "You protected us." Elias wiped dirt from his face and smiled tiredly. "Of course I did. You're not alone anymore." The twins felt something powerful inside their hearts, something warm, something strong, something they had never felt in the cold palace. It was the feeling of being valued. It was the feeling of belonging. But as the humans helped each other up and repaired the damage, none of them realized that the battle had sent a signal far across the galaxy. A signal strong enough to reach the throne of the Valyrian Empire and the Empress herself. Their peaceful days were not over, but the future was about to change more than any of them could imagine. The days after the Korda attack felt different for everyone in the valley. People tried to return to their normal routines, but a quiet tension hung in the air. No one knew if the Korda would come back. No one knew what would happen next. Yet the colonists kept working, kept rebuilding, and kept protecting one another, because humans were good at standing together when life became difficult. Aurelie and Sina felt the change too. The peaceful world they had grown to love now carried a shadow of danger. They tried to hide their fear, but Elias noticed it in the way they moved and spoke. Aurelie stayed closer to the house than before. Sina double-checked every window and door, as if expecting trouble at any moment. Elias didn't blame them. They had lived their whole lives under pressure. And now, just when they found freedom, someone tried to take it away. He wanted to reassure them, but he also knew the situation was serious. The Korda rarely abandoned their goals. If they wanted the princesses once, they would likely want them again, especially after they failed the first time. Still, life did not stop. Every morning, Elias encouraged the twins to continue their routines. "We can't let fear decide how we live," he told them gently. "We take precautions, yes, but we don't lock ourselves inside forever." The twins tried. Aurelie returned to her garden, though she always glanced at the sky. Sina returned to the workshop, though she checked the scanner every hour. Elias admired their effort, knowing that bravery did not always mean fighting it, sometimes meant simply continuing with life. But the attack also changed something else. The bond between the twins and the humans deepened. People who barely knew them came to check on them every day. The children who once asked questions and offered flowers now brought small, handmade gifts, paintings, toys, and snacks. One elderly woman even knitted scarves for them, saying, "Consider this a warm welcome to our world." Aurelie cried quietly that night while holding the scarf. She had never received handmade kindness before. Sina hugged her gently. "Humans are strange, but they are kind." Sina, part. Aurelie nodded. "I wish Mother could see this." Elias overheard those words and felt a small ache inside. The twins still loved their mother deeply, even after being sent away. They still wanted her acceptance, her pride, her warmth, things they had rarely felt. He wondered if the Empress understood what she had lost. Meanwhile, far away in the Valyrian Empire, the Empress did learn something. A Korda transmission was intercepted by her fleet. She heard about the failed attempt to capture her daughters. She learned that a human, an ordinary man, had defended them with unexpected courage. Her first reaction was disbelief. Why would a human protect alien royalty? Why risk his life for children? Not his own. Why challenge a dangerous faction? Without hesitation, she demanded every detail. Her advisors explained the battle, the human colony, and the way the princesses had been living. The Empress listened quietly, her face unreadable. But deep inside, something stirred, something she had not felt in many years. Guilt. The Empress had always believed strictness made strength. She believed softness was weakness. She believed pushing her daughters away would shape them. But now she heard stories of how they smiled in the human colony, how they learned, how they grew more confident. It confused her. It challenged everything she believed. For the first time, she wondered if she had been wrong. Back on the colony, Elias continued preparing for possible danger. He upgraded the valley shields. He built small warning devices. He checked the scanner hourly. He worked long nights, repairing the damage the battle caused. Sina helped him, learning faster than he expected. Her hands moved with precision, and her mind solved problems like a natural engineer. Aureli helped by organizing tools, cleaning parts, and bringing food during long hours of work. The workshop became a little world of peace, despite the tension. Sometimes Elias would tell stories while they worked, stories of old Earth, ancient explorers, or simple tales about fixing broken machines in his childhood. The twins listened with interest, their faces lighting up when he described human struggles and victories. They found humans fascinating, imperfect, but determined, fragile, but brave. One night, while they sat around the workbench, Aureli asked softly, "Elias, why did you protect us so much? You could have run. Everyone would have understood." Elias looked at her with gentle eyes. "Because no one deserves to be taken from their home. And because you two, you're part of my life now. You matter here. You matter to me." Sina blinked fast, hiding tears. Aureli felt warmth spread through her heart. No one had ever said something like that to them. But even in these peaceful moments, danger continued to move in the shadows. The Korda were humiliated by their defeat, and furious at being resisted by primitive humans. They sent out messages to gather more forces. Their new plan was clear: return stronger, faster, and more prepared. This time, they intended to take the princesses no matter what stood in their way. Days later, the scanner picked up something unusual, several small signals entering the system, too many to be coincidence. Elias's expression tightened. The twins sensed his concern and came closer. "More Korda?" Sina whispered. "Not sure yet," Elias said. "But something's coming." The days that followed were filled with preparation. The humans reinforced barriers, repaired old defense units, and organized shelter plans. Everyone was ready to protect Aureli and Sina again. But unexpectedly, the threat that arrived was not the Korda. Late in the afternoon, a massive shadow covered the valley. The twins looked up, expecting the worst. But the ship that descended was not dark and sharp like the Korda vessels. It was bright silver, lined with royal symbols. Valyrian symbols. Aureli gasped. Sina felt her knees weaken. Elias stepped forward, shielding them instinctively. The ship landed gracefully, and a group of elite Valyrian guards stepped out. Behind them, dressed in regal armor, stood the Empress herself. The valley fell silent. Villagers watched from windows and behind fences. Children peered from doorways. No one had ever seen such an important alien ruler in person. Her presence felt heavy, like a storm about to break. The Empress walked forward, her gaze sharp as she studied the human land. When her eyes found her daughters, she paused. Aureli and Sina looked small and fragile compared to their mother's towering figure. But this time, something was different. They were not trembling. They were not hiding. They stood beside Elias, their shoulders touching his arms for strength. The Empress approached slowly. The guards waited behind her. Elias did not step aside. He stood between the Empress and the twins, not aggressively, but protectively. The Empress raised an eyebrow. Human, you dare stand in my way? You dare stand in my way? Elias spoke calmly. I stand with them. That's all. The twins looked at him with admiration. The Empress looked at him with surprise. No one in her empire had ever spoken to her like that without fear. She studied Aurelie and Sina closely. They looked healthier, more alive, more confident than she had ever seen. Their eyes were bright, their posture steady, their energy warm. The Empress felt a strange ache in her chest. She had not expected this. You have changed, she said quietly, almost to herself. You look different. Aurelie swallowed. We grew here. Sena nodded. We learned here. The Empress glanced at Elias. Because of him? Aurelie took a deep breath. Because he let us be ourselves, Sena added softly. He treated us with kindness. Elias remained silent, allowing them to speak. For a long moment, the Empress said nothing. Her face shifted slowly from disappointment to confusion, to something almost like regret. Finally, she spoke. I came because your lives were threatened. I came because you are my daughters. And I came because I heard what this human did. She turned to Elias. Why? Why protect them? They are not your blood, not your duty, not your people. Elias answered simply, because everyone deserves a chance to become who they truly are. The Empress fell silent again. She had expected excuses, not wisdom. She had expected fear, not courage. In that quiet valley, surrounded by humans who had fought for her daughters, the Empress felt something shifting inside her, a realization that the strength she valued so deeply might not be the only kind of strength in the universe. Aurelie and Sena stood straighter. Humans watched with hope. Elias waited calmly. The future was changing, and the Empress had a choice to make. The valley felt strangely quiet as the Empress stood facing her daughters. The wind barely moved. The humans watched from a safe distance, unsure whether to step forward or stay back. Elias remained steady beside Aurelie and Sena, not saying a word, but letting his presence speak for him. The Empress, who had always seen herself as larger than life, suddenly felt smaller in this peaceful human world. She looked around, taking in the workshop, the fields, the distant trees, and the simple human homes. This place was nothing like her empire. There were no guards marching, no grand halls, no constant pressure, only calm, open land, and people who seemed to care about each other without judging rank or bloodline. The Empress turned her eyes back to her daughters. You have grown, she said softly. You look different. Aurelie felt her throat tighten. The Empress had rarely commented on their growth, except to compare them to warriors or advisors. She had never spoken of them as individuals. Sena stepped slightly forward, her hands shaking. We found a life here, Sena said. A life where we are not afraid. The Empress's eyes flickered with something complicated. Regret, pride, maybe confusion. Afraid? Afraid of what? I gave you everything. Aurelie lowered her voice. You gave us duties, lessons, expectations, but not warmth. The Empress froze. Those words struck deeper than any blade. She had always believed strength came from pushing her daughters hard. She told herself they needed to be shaped. But hearing the truth from their own mouths made her chest tighten. Elias finally spoke, gentle but firm. Sometimes giving everything except love is the same as giving nothing. The Empress glanced at him sideways. Normally, she would have been angered by such boldness. But this human's words felt honest, not rebellious. He wasn't trying to challenge her power. He was simply telling the truth from his heart. She took a slow breath. I came to bring you home, to protect you, to fix what happened. Aurelie and Sena exchanged a look. Home, the palace, the cold halls, the heavy silence, the endless disappointment. Sena's voice trembled as she answered. Home never felt like home. The Empress blinked. That simple sentence cut deeper than anything she had heard in years. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. The truth was painful. She had lost touch with her daughters long ago, and she didn't know how to reach them anymore. Elias stepped slightly forward, not to confront her, but to stand beside the twins like a quiet guardian. They don't have to go anywhere, he said. They are safe here. The Empress stared at him. You think a farm and a workshop can protect them? You think these humans can stand against armies? Elias nodded calmly. We already did. The Empress raised her head in surprise. Not many people, human or alien, held such steady courage in their eyes. They are not warriors, the Empress said. They were never meant to fight. No, Elias replied. They were meant to live. Those words hung in the air. Even the wind seemed to pause. Aurelie approached her mother slowly. We don't want to return to that palace. We don't want to be judged every day. We don't want to be told we are failures. Sena added, We learned more here in a few months than we learned in the palace in years. We discovered our talents. We discovered people who care for us. We discovered ourselves. The Empress felt something warm and sharp in her heart, a mixture of sorrow and realization. She had never intended to hurt them, but she had. Without meaning to, she had pushed them so hard that they had broken inside. But here, in this quiet valley, they had healed. At last, the Empress asked a painful question. If you stay here, will you never return to me? Aurelie stepped closer until she stood right in front of her mother. Her voice cracked as she spoke. Mother, we love you. But love should not hurt. It should not make us feel small. Sena placed a gentle hand on her sister's shoulder and added, We want to see you again. We want you in our lives. But we cannot live under fear anymore. The Empress finally bowed her head. Not to her daughters, but to the truth. I am the Empress, she whispered. I commanded fleets. I won wars. But I could not understand my own children. Elias placed a hand on Aurelie's shoulder. The Empress noticed how easily the twins leaned toward him, trusting him with their whole hearts. It was then she realized something important. This human was not stealing her daughters. He was giving them something she could not, a place to grow. After a long silence, the Empress spoke again. If I let you stay here, will you still call me mother? Aurelie reached out and touched her hand. If you try to know us, yes. Sena nodded. We never wanted to lose you. We just wanted you to accept us. The Empress swallowed tightly. This was the moment she could either cling to her pride or choose her daughters. She chose them. You may stay, she said quietly. Here, on this world, with this human. The twins gasped. Elias blinked, but said nothing. The Empress continued. But I will return. Not with soldiers. Not with orders. I will return as your mother, if you will allow it. Aurelie burst into tears and hugged her. Something she had not done since she was a child. Sena joined them, trembling with emotion. The Empress stiffened at first, unused to such warmth, but then slowly wrapped her arms around them, closing her eyes. For the first time in their lives, they felt her heart, not as a ruler, but as a mother. When they finally separated, the Empress turned to Elias. You protected my daughters. You helped them become who they are. You gave them what I failed to give. Elias bowed his head respectfully. I only let them be themselves. The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then, with a rare softness in her voice, she said, Thank you, human. The valley exhaled as if relieved. In the days that followed, the Empress stayed on the colony to observe how her daughters lived. She watched Aurelie tend to her garden, smiling at each new sprout. She watched Sena repair machines with skill she never knew her daughter had. She saw how the humans treated them not as royalty, but as friends. And for the first time, she understood why her daughters wanted to stay. Before she left, she placed a gentle touch on each of their cheeks. "Grow well," she said. "I will come again." The twins nodded, full of hope. The Empress gave Elias one more look. "Guard them, not because they are princesses, but because they are themselves." Elias answered, "I promise." Her ship rose into the sky and disappeared into the clouds, leaving a new peace behind. The valley felt different now, lighter, freer, and filled with possibilities. Aurelie and Sina returned to their daily lives, helping Elias in the workshop, joining the townspeople in small celebrations, and rebuilding the parts of the valley damaged during the attack. They laughed more. They spoke without fear. They dreamed without limits. One evening, as the sunset painted the sky in orange and gold, Elias stood on the porch while the twins sat beside him. "You know," he said quietly, "your lives are just beginning." Aurelie smiled softly. "For the first time, our lives feel like our own." Sina leaned back and looked at the stars. "And we are not failures." Elias nodded. "You never were." The valley lights glowed softly. The workshop hummed with new inventions. The garden rustled in the evening wind. And overhead, the stars shone brighter than ever, like they were finally watching a story that had found its right ending. The twins were home, not because someone ordered it, but because they chose it. And in the quiet heart of a human world, they finally discovered what true strength looked like. Not in power, not in battle, but in kindness, freedom, and love.